much more successful than the former.
Everybody know who that picture is? Yeah. Kobe Bryant, you know, considered one of the biggest motivators, leaders of a basketball team. All right, but he's a surly fellow. He usually, you know, he's good for about 2-3 games. Really kind of motivates his team. He goes through anger, fear, or that type of disposition where he has his will to win so much, but really it turns off a lot of his teammates, and it's a real short-term effect. Is those couple of wins. Good. So when we talk about roles of others, okay, as you are pushing for self-motivation, it's about your support group, your network. So once again, your family, your friends, your work colleagues, being around positive people that will support you and push you. And you know, in multiple different areas, certainly here in my various capacities, you could find people, oh no, that's a bad idea. No, that's not what you should do. And it shoots you down pretty quickly. And so if it's teaching a class and the student wants to raise their hand, and I shoot them down, going, oh, that's a bad question. They're not going to raise their hand ever again. Or a player of mine on the baseball team has a question about, hey, can you re-explain the signs to me? Because I'm not sure I really understand them. And I'm like, man, we're 2 weeks already in. How do you not know the signs? You think they're going to raise their hand? Speak up again? They're not good. But so the roles of others are really, really important, where you have clear goals, the support network, and certainly the care. But when you go into supervisor, I know John and I did a lot of supervisor training, and it's tough. It's certainly tough in a variety of climates to really kind of espouse it consistently. And when you have individual challenges, maybe at home, maybe in your own position at work, it's very, very tough to practice what you preach, let's say. But certainly, as with the video, that's why I love that video so much, you know, it's empowerment. Those students, 5th graders, that we wish we can go back to and feel that empowered, to feel completely at ease to sing, no matter how bad or good you are, to feel strong enough to do that, to be acknowledged, you know, that simple pat on the back about great work. And then the rewards. You know, all very simple motivation techniques in supervisory training, but including myself, it's easy to forget. It's easy to forget that. But as supervisors, everyone here is to, you have a role as well. It's not just that person's support network, which is just their family and their friends.
Well, if you leave it here too, though, again, these aren't just altruistic. It's not feel good. It's just not virtues and values that maybe all of us in this room espouse. It's actually practical and pragmatic. Those companies, those institutions, those colleges that empower their employees, acknowledge them and reward them, they're more successful. And in the case of colleges, it affects their students because the students feel it and they receive a better education. So this isn't pie in the sky stuff. It's actually best practices that if we follow it, we will find that we're better off, but most importantly, in case of a supervisor, those we work with are well off.
Yeah, as Sean mentions, and we always share a lot of research with each other, because we always think, I mean, are we crazy? Are we the crazy ones? And, you know, just this morning, I received another article from the Harvard Business Review, and once again, it reiterated the same fact about support network, positive culture, how people thrive in that atmosphere much more than how much you get paid. And so I know money typically is the initial short-term motivator, how much money you get, but ultimately, if you don't like what you're doing, you know, it could be at home, here, wherever, you know, you become gradually demotivated. And you're going to end up doing, you know, the minimal amount of work, okay? And so when you talk about, you know, your supervisor, don't just hang your hat on, well, I can't give them any more. What am I supposed to do, okay? It's really about these elements.
Bill, before you go, and again, it's another workshop. I know I've kind of harped on it over the years here, but it's about our own health. And we all know this about stress, but what it leads to, the debilitating illnesses. And I sit with Grace often and we review clinical cases, medical cases. Of course, we have permission to do so. And it astounds me how many people at the institution, both now and who've recently retired, have serious, serious medical conditions. Now, I'm not saying they're all because of working here. They could be caused by multiple factors, but the numbers are staggering. And fortunately, you know, a great HR department, and working in our case with UUP, there's a lot of care. You guys have donated multiple days. But what I see is that stress, that does lead to real debilitating conditions, and it really matters. So part of this is not only practical, realistic for the present, it also really significantly impacts the future. At the end of the day, though, and this is where we're getting to, it really is personal. It comes down to you as the individual. Stephen Richards is a motivational expert, does a lot of time in life management works, and basically saying there, we create ourselves, our own making. We have that incredible ability. Now granted, if my father and mother are under 6 feet, I'm probably not likely to grow to be 7 feet and be a center in the NBA. However, what we become as far as our personality and who we are, what we're given, and our abilities, so much of that is intrinsic. And it's partly, it's significantly due to how we make it, what we do, the thoughts we plant into our heads. And the more and more I study this, the more I realize it's almost remarkable. It's almost to the point where the brain's capacity is frightening, that it's so powerful. And literally, we know it. We all do it. You can go through a period in 1 hour from feeling you can take on to the world to feeling like, oh my goodness, I can't do anything right. Well, all the variables were the same externally. It was you and your mind that made that enormous adjustment and change. And so we have to therefore focus on that and carry our attention to it. Richards also notes that how we perceive ourselves is a reflection of how we will end up living our lives. And that's not to say to be some narcissist where you just focus exclusively internally and never receive feedback. No, it's actually the opposite. It's to be introspective. Look at our flaws, look at our values, look at our strengths, to get feedback from others. As much as I joke about Rich, I turn to him often as a mentor, as a great colleague and friend, and ask him about perceptions of things. I'm very lucky. I'm deeply blessed to have somebody with the institutional experience, but also with the values that are so great to guide me throughout my time here at Purchase. I couldn't pay $1 million for that. We all have those people. Use them to bounce things off of, and then you take it back internally, and you use that to be even more motivated and more powerful in your own efforts.
And that segues into this slide, as John talks about, relying on Rich as someone to bounce off ideas, to talk about. These are factors that affect self-perception. And certainly, once again, go back to family and friends, go back to colleagues, co-workers. I can really determine positive or negative reactions to certain ideas, certain thoughts. I can really help you, motivate you to take that change that we talked about at the very, very beginning. So certainly supervisors as well. But when you get down to media, you get down into the environment, and sometimes first, when you take yourself out of an existing environment, you almost go, wow, things are a little bit different everywhere else. This isn't the norm. And so it's really, really helpful to do that at times, to really get perspective again. And it's tough to get caught up when you're at a place all the time. But media, the picture, it's going to be tough for you to figure out what this picture is from. But this just came out last week. This idea, and certainly we have, a lot of research is being based on. I know Kyle and I talked about this, about video games and media and movies really influencing violence. And so perception, just like this little boy watching, I don't even know if that's Sesame Street or not, but the recent study that came out is that watching appropriate shows gives you the ability, or teaches at that young age what appropriate behaviors are. And that violent behavior is not necessarily the right way to act, although TV or shows may show you or make you think it is. All right, so it's really interesting when you look at that. Once again, back to the idea of family, friends, co-workers, what your environment is.
There are some practical steps we can take to reach that point where we're motivating ourselves. The first one, I think, is the most critical one. Theologian Mike Murdock has some remarkable notions about this idea of finding a healthy space. And again, it doesn't have to be the bucolic setting out the countryside. It might be in your own office, it might be in your bedroom, in your living room. The key piece is that it's a moment of peace, where you literally can kind of drown out the noise that's surrounding you. Usually that's white noise anyway, it comes and goes. It's what's important is in between your ears, to have that moment where you can kind of close your eyes. And Murdock notes, and I really believe this, there is a place for every one of us where our genius, who we are, can explode. If you are in that place right now, that is fantastic. If you're not, seek it. Because that, when you go back to that survey that was done, what people will really say is, I never, not all of them of course, but a lot of them, I never found that place where I could truly be myself and allow my genius to help others, my true self to expand, to grow, to explore, to seek joy, and obviously have challenges. But that key piece is critical. And again, it doesn't mean you have to leave where you're at, leave the state of New York or wherever you may be residing, but it means mentally you need to find that healthy domain, that healthy space to think. And I think back to William Shapiro years ago, who headed the DuPont Corporation, massive corporation, and he gave a college commencement speak years ago. And he said every day, and here's this guy, he was a tower at the time, I would assume he probably passed away, this was a number of years ago. In any event, he was a tower giant in the field. And he said every afternoon for 20 minutes I'd take a little cat nap on my office couch. And the other day I was thinking, that's pretty good. I take a 2-hour nap. So, but I was amazed by that. He said, but I don't really sleep. He said, what I do is I dream, and I think about thoughts and ideas, and I let them filter through my brain. And then when I get up, I write down some notes. And he said, not only do I feel a little refreshed, I know that I had that moment, that space. And that's what Murdoch is talking about here. And it is really exceptional to do that. We don't do it enough. Because as Bill talked about before, we're so caught up in the day-to-day. We don't have that moment. It doesn't take a lot of time, but take that time, because at the end of the day, it exponentially increases all that we can do external through that time. Being open to the possibility is really important. I think